Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today, and I feel very honored now. Sort of just trying to stay in the moment, be as present as possible, and recognize that every interview I do is precious, regardless of fame or notoriety, or just the ability of stardom. It's just, to me, this is about painting a picture of the American musical landscape. And I get a chance today to speak to a really great, really decorated rhythmist, percussionist, keyboard player. It's been in a myriad of bands, and a few months ago, it was actually last year, 2021, I had a chance to see him in the conglomerate known as Grateful Shred playing conga drums, which, it was not easy to fit himself in between double drums, Adam McDougall and Omar Velasco playing cajon and these things, but he was very graceful at it, and been wanting to talk to him about his own career for a long time. Dusty Ineman, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's an honor, man. Can you just go talk a little bit about when you really began to internalize and feel the rhythms of life within yourself? Like how much of a journey has it been? Something that has been with you since you were a kid?
I can remember I went to a high school basketball game when I was 7 or 8, and just as a fun thing to do with my dad, just the local high school basketball game. Yeah. And the band was playing right next to me, and I could feel the kick drum and bass in my chest. when
I dig,
yeah. And for a little kid, I'd never felt that before. And that moment I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I was just hooked. And after that, I just kind of my mom got me a bass. I started in bass lessons, and then I took some guitar lessons, and my mom always played guitar in before bed every night. She had her folk songbook out and would always be strumming, and I'd sit there and play with her. I think I can say that it was the high school basketball game that was that feeling, and then I've just played ever since. And then when I was 15, I saved up and bought a drum kit.
You basically, though, I mean, it's fair to say that you've always been somebody who feels the rhythm, the undulating rhythms. It's a percussive kind of feel,
Yeah, I can't stop tapping on things. I'm very punctual. I don't know. I feel rhythm and time and all that super heightened. And I just it's a sixth sense or something. Even when I'm not super, I'm pretty much all self-taught. But I have taken a few lessons from friends and stuff, friends in the, but that came as an adult taking lessons to try and.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I really want you to talk to younger cats about how you learned, how you taught yourself, especially because to me, that is so much of the magic of the music that I love and the time period that I love, is that, the Academy wasn't this assembly line chop shop where people were going, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to essentially learn a street language of jazz or something like that in the Academy. There's a homogenization of sound. The thing that I love about self-taught musicians is just they have their own sound. They have their own individual sound. And I kind of wanted you to talk. I mean, aside from shedding, that's always important. You got to woodshed a lot, but especially on the bandstand, how did you learn? Maybe there was a time when you were just being yourself and somebody was insecure and they were giving you grief, but can you just talk about staying mentally tough as a self-taught musician to younger cats, and ultimately the rewards of it in the long run?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on person to person. Like some people are naturally rhythmic or naturally harmonic, and it just comes naturally to them. And some people really have to practice and unlock. That part of their brain. In my case, I was naturally gifted in rhythm, and I had a lot of people around me. Like I grew up, like all my friends in high school were musicians, fantastic musicians. And um, yeah, it was just okay. Where am I going with this?
Now, you
Yeah,
know what I want you to talk about? Was there a time, I don't know, it was on the trap set or whatever, but you were with maybe people you didn't really necessarily have great relationship or very, very tight with, but somebody was trying to get you to play more. I just remember the story about Billy Kreutzmann, the drummer from the Dead, and in high school, his I think the band teacher was like, he had such a different style, and he wasn't conforming, and the guy's like, "You're never gonna make it," and it was just sort of like, it was like, was there any kind of thing where you were like, I'm going to wear this. Like, I'm going to wear this individuality and be proud of it. Like, to me, I think cats get so scared off sometimes because of experiences with cats who push them to conform when they should just be themselves. Was there anything like that in your early career when you were developing your own chops?
not really. Everyone was super supportive.
They all loved what you did. I mean, it was no problem.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
I never like came up against that as a young cat, really. I mean, I can't speak on that. I listened a lot and I didn't get discouraged. And I just practiced when I needed to practice.
What would discourage Dusty Ineman? Give an example of discouragement, but then you overcame it. What was an example of that?
Just being in bands where things weren't really vibing, or, what else? What was an example?
Was there like a challenging style of music that was like would sort of discourage you, but then you kept at it and kept working at it?
Well, like Afro-Cuban, like
Right.
all those crazy rhythms. It's just like, it's crazy. But I had like, just listening and practice YouTube lessons and stuff. Like right when just taking that feeling and taking it home and just practicing and then coming back going, hey, I learned the rhythm type of thing. I didn't have too many big like. It was all really nice, to be honest.
That's then you're blessed. What what would you say to younger cats today? Because there's a book on this and there's a book on this, and everybody, there's these ways of teaching stuff. But I mean, especially as it relates to like melodic improvisation or jazz or just in general, like. What do you feel are the rewards in your looking at it in your own career, your own point of view musically? What are the rewards of being self-taught, and what would you recommend to kids? Why should they go in that direction? Because I just feel like the academy. Yeah, I think you're right. There's nothing wrong with lessons or getting lessons to unlock a certain part of your brain, but if you go to school to learn a street language of jazz, I mean, that's absurd. And there's no guarantees that there's even a gig coming out of there. I mean, in the past, those schools represented more like trade schools where cats might come off the road and try to kick an addiction or learn a new instrument, but they were already working professionals. And so I'm not saying that, it's a blissful experience being a self-taught musician, but what are the rewards that you can talk to younger cats about the path you took?
I think the ability to channel and to be free and just have a clear, empty mind, and just those moments where you're not thinking about anything and it's just flowing through you, and you're connecting with the other rhythm section. You're just locked. Whatever your bass, drums. That's my experience, because I've like the cats that I've played with that are like LA School Music Academy, Musicians Institute. Like this is like back in my college days when people were just getting out of music school. Those people were challenging to play music with, in my opinion.
Why was this? Because they had too much. It was too intellectual, right?
Because they were too in their head
Right.
about what was cool, what their teachers, what chord progression, what voicing, what fancy polyrhythm they were going to use. No one, these music, in my experience, no one was like just letting go and feeling the music.
Why? Why? No, no. Explain. So, is that just as? I mean, I'm not a professional musician, so I'm because and this is when you talk about just feeling the music and sort of creating your own parts or your own interpretation. Why? What happens? Is that more like of a human nature thing that cats are that they're afraid to potentially fall on their face and fail, so they want to stay within this sort of box that they've created for themselves?
Absolutely. They're afraid of playing a wrong note or like missing a beat or something. But really, there is no, in jazz, and there's no wrong note.
No,
I mean,
there's no wrong notes.
That's obvious, you know. And everyone's just petrified of the wrong note. Then they're going to be fired or looked down upon as bad musician or something, you know. At least in my like Santa Barbara City College, like music jazz band experience, you know. I didn't last very long in that program because it was.
Wait, talk about that. So that, I mean, because that's not Berkeley or North Texas, but you know what was going on there, and why did Ineman have a quick exit?
It was just ego filled. Everyone trying to play the fastest, the most complicated stuff.
That doesn't, and that doesn't feel good. Like that stuff does not. I mean, that intellectual exercise, that's cool. I mean, I guess we've just been taught to sit and stare and applaud at somebody's facility, but that doesn't feel good to me.
No, yeah, I saw through the bullshit, and I wasn't having any fun playing these songs and playing with the musicians, and then slowly, and then it was kind of, I just found all the people that weren't into that stuff, and like it was like Omar Velasco and Austin Beatty.
Oh
like,
my God,
like
heroes! I just want to. I don't want to rush this. You're like, this is a drag. I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
And is that when you connected with those cats? How did you meet them?
I met Austin was like the drummer in Santa Barbara, especially the big band at Santa Barbara City College. Like he was the guy, and he was friends. So let me backtrack. I met Omar in high school. Omar's a little bit older than us, but he was in a band with a couple friends in high school, and that band dissolved. And then it was right after high school he started a project and like took me on. He's like, oh, he saw me playing percussion. It's like, hey, you want to play percussion and keys? And
that is, I love that cat so much, man.
Yeah, and he's my mentor. He's like the reason
he can. So hold on. He saw you were just like on the street playing congas, or like, where?
No. I was playing. I was just playing like. I would just sit in and at jams playing hand percussion. You know, our crew was full of everyone was a drummer. You know, no one was playing conga or just really taking percussion seriously. And Omar saw that in me. He's like, oh my gosh, and brought me into the fold. And we had this group called the Omar Cowan Band. That's Omar's real name.
Wait, how do you spell his last name?
Cowan, Cawan.
I love, dude. You're letting stuff out of the bag. This is great, man.
Oh
man.
Yeah, we had this group, and we played so much. Like we had this standing gig at this little bar in Solvang, California. We played, I think, 3 times a week.
What was the name? What was the name of the bar?
It was called Alisal Cellars. It was this underground.
I love this
little like stinky, moldy cavern place that. Yeah, and they just like you're like 3 times.
3 times a week.
No, a month.
A month. Okay, three gigs a week. That's pretty old school. But
yeah, it is.
So that band. Was that more just sort of, was there Afro-Cuban rhythms in there? I mean, Omar's deeply involved with rhythm, so.
There wasn't. I brought it to the fold, but there was like, it was like Omar's music. It was his band, and we just, I just played percussion, It was his kind of music. But there was really no like there was a little bit in there. Like I brought it, like he was like, okay, we can add these rhythmic elements into the group now that we have it, you know. But we just played for like 3 hours a night, like, and it ended up with us just jamming. You know, we would go through all of our songs. It'd be like Omar would roll down his set, then we'd do the covers, and then we'd be like, okay, what are we gonna do now? You know.
And then it would be just total improv, like just make it up.
Yeah, I'd be like, Shane, go, or Justin, start it. You know, or someone would just start something and we'd all follow along.
Are there tapes of this stuff?
I'm
going to reach out to Omar. I got to hear some of these freeform jams.
There's recordings. We would bring a little Edirol recorder.
Beautiful,
with us
yeah.
Every gig, and I think there's some on my hard drive I can look up. I know once in a while someone will text like an old jam, will be like, whoa, that is crazy.
Dude, please, if you got anything on the hard drive, especially that late night third set jam, I need to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think there might be some Alice Al
So explain, this is really important, and not to me, but just to the audience listening, like, okay, the Snobatorium, Santa Barbara, City College, jazz band, whatever, what was it about Omar's band? The musicians maybe they weren't playing as fast. They weren't caught up with technique. But what was more fun? Were they all self-taught musicians?
So yeah, half and half. I mean, people took lessons as kids, you know.
Sure.
So the band consisted of myself, Omar, Shane McKillop, and Justin Flint.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just the four of us. And it was just, we just had this like weird connection.
I love it. That's the best because it didn't necessarily make sense but when you put all of you together, it worked.
Yeah, and we played together. You know, we still play together. You know, it's just never ending. We always kind of get back together, and it's amazing. But what was I saying?
Well, no. What explain maybe just the nuances of like, you know, people are saying, well, I mean, this is like you're in college. How could you walk away from the academy and now you're playing in some cellar? But yet it was so much more fulfilling and gratifying, and I think you probably grew as an artist more. And I just wanted you to talk to Katz about a lot of this stuff. Is like it's not linear. It doesn't make it, you know, it may not make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. It's what feels good. And I just wanted that group. Yeah.
You just answered it. It felt good.
Yeah.
All the time. And like we would just get into these grooves or little, you know, pockets. It was just like the pocket. Like Justin, Shane, and I had this crazy connection as the rhythm section. Where we could just like, it was
telepathic almost from the beginning.
Yeah. And Shane and Justin and I had grown up together. We all grew up within 3 miles of each other. We weren't necessarily like friends, but we were all kind of like Shane was in a metal band in high school, and I was in like a Cali reggae style band, you know. But like, yet we still appreciated each other. And then Justin's a little younger, and he was also mentored by Omar. He was plucked out of high school to play music. Like he got his GED, but he stopped going to school to like do music seriously with Omar as a 16-year-old.
That is, I just want to be clear. When you talk about, it's another very interesting point. When you talk about mentoring, you know, some people might think that, you know, he was there. It wasn't like he was showing you patterns on the conga drum. You're talking about him just as a leader. Would you say that Omar was a mentor? Yeah,
he was just a great band leader.
What makes this is so important because, I mean, the guys that I've gravitated to, I mean, I live in Tucson and I have dear friends down here, and some of them are leaders of bands, and I think sometimes, you know, no one's perfect. They're immensely talented, but they have a tendency to, well, they self-destruct a little bit. I just wonder what you think makes a great leader, especially on the bandstand.
Patience. kindness and like getting your point across. What he knew exactly what he wanted to hear, and he would show you how to play it. And if you didn't get it at first, he would had patience to. It was all about patience, really.
Right.
It was him, maybe seeing in me that you just need a little more time to get something, or patience, kindness, understanding,
and I think also like giving you the opportunity to have creative freedom at times too, right? I mean, it was not it wasn't like his 100%. Show and you had to play everything exactly the way he wanted it.
It was actually like he would be like, "Oh, I love that, but maybe try this, or leave that out or something." It was always constructive criticism. I don't think I ever had Omar bark at me. I've never heard him bark at anybody. To be honest.
I haven't. I mean, I love that cat, man. I mean, it's so. Then was Beatty wasn't playing with you? He was just cooking the big band at that point.
Yeah, he was around. He was cooking big band and playing gigs, and he went off with this band Alberta Cross for a while.
Right.
And then he came back and he started playing drums with Omar after Justin had taken a little break. So like there was a point where Omar had like Beatty playing drums, Justin, they were kind of switching off. His band kept kind of rotating because he was down in LA and a lot of people weren't in LA. Then Austin came because Austin and Omar went to high school together.
So Austin was also your elder. I mean, they were both the same age, but you were younger than them. Yeah.
Yeah, they were both like Shane, Justin, and I, the younger cats, we were like 4 years younger, always looked up to them. We were always like, whoa, even in high school.
Dude, I would have looked up to them even if they were my age, dude. Dude, they're just great. Yeah. They're just like, I don't know how they were made this way, but I mean, neither of them, they're both like just badass musicians, and they almost like they don't want there's no ego with them. It's a really remarkable and beautiful thing. Makes you want to even dig it even more. So you wound up in the cellar, or did you go to LA to play with them, or how did that all work out?
LA came later with Omar. Omar moved down there and like started just he was like we were all playing in Santa Barbara. We had this band in Santa Barbara, and Omar said, "Okay, I'm done, guys. I think I'm going to go down to LA and do my thing down there."
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the end of when that happened. I joined another band called Gardens and Via. I got some stuff to show you.
We're just getting. We got a game on this program called Name That Voice, and I don't expect you to know who this is, but just pay attention to the content, and we'll come back and break it down.
Cool.
Thing that happened when Tony Williams and Ron Carter came into playing with Miles. They no longer just played straight ahead, ding, 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 dotted eighth note to the 16th note swing, but they broke the time up.
Mm-hmm.
And that just messed me up. I said, wow, this is so beautiful. They're breaking up the time. There's freedom. And then all of a sudden, as on My Funny Valentine, all of a sudden they start going into time, and it was amazing. It just lifted my entire being. So that whole concept of no longer just playing hard bop, but breaking up the time and everybody having a space to create, and then all of a sudden, as the choruses went by, everybody started to swing the tune. That was a huge, huge thing. And then, of course, after that whole thing,
Dusty, that was an interview I did with one of the most sublime and badass musicians. This guy named Tommy Koster. He played with Santana. Just amazing keyboard player, plays keys. And what he was talking about was like, you talk about, there's a lot of stories around these sessions in 65 with Miles at the Plug Nickel. Some people say that Herbie and Wayne Shorter and Tony and Ron took a blood oath and said, we're bored to death of just playing these standards. So let's play the head of the tune, and then we'll leave the head and go out, and then it will be unrecognizable, and then we'll come back in. Mm-hmm. And the story goes that they showed up at the club, which was in Chicago, and Miles was like, "We're recording tonight." And they're like, "Oh crap!" They're like, "Well, we're still going to do it," and they did it, and Miles got off. He loved it. Now the other part is that supposedly Miles was also sick and tired of playing bebop, so it's about the question is this: can you talk about a musical experience that you've had in a band and how you learned as a drummer or hand drummer how to break up time and form? I mean, to me, there's nothing worse than just playing just linear quantized rhythm. And I feel like in country music and bluegrass music and reggae music, in jazz, blues, you can always break up time and form. And obviously when you're adding additional percussion, hand drums, it gets even more intense. And I just kind of wanted you to take us through that evolution of how Dusty Ineman learned to break up time and form in all musical settings.
How did I learn to break up time and form?
Just say it's all feel, man. Yeah. No, but I mean, I mean that's
by being on the edge of my seat and just,
right.
Listening, awareness. Just
what's the most? I mean, can you talk about a band where maybe there were odd meters, or it was just there was an opportunity for you to, you could tempo shift within the music and nobody got really uptight about that, or just in general, like, where there might have been different time signatures within the tunes. To me that there's something about, there's just what Tommy was talking about is just like, you listen to a tune like My Funny Valentine from the Plug Nickel sessions, and within 5 minutes, you can't even recognize what the tune is because they're out in space. And then they come back in later. I mean, is there some kind of band you played in? The Grateful Dead were like that to a degree. But, I mean, I mean,
more recently, the Shred.
Absolutely.
But I played in a band called Wetlands. It was this, like, hybrid Afro beat. It was heavily influenced by it was all Afrobeat rhythms.
Oh, I got to hear some of this stuff.
But it was like mixed with Sly Stone and soul and funk, but all the rhythm was Afrobeat.
Wow.
So like
Tony Allen kind of stuff.
Exactly. Justin, who was the drummer, Tony Allen.
He really had that down, that Fela Kuti kind of pulsating bass and drums. Yeah.
Yeah. But we would take the Afrobeat like rhythms and form, and then he'd throw bar of 5 in or 9. The guy Jeremy Rennick, the band leader, he was a madman. I'll send you some of the stuff.
So let's just talk about that. He would put in different bars here. I mean, how did you learn to make that music? I mean, that music feels good no matter what. But when you are sort of, at the beginning, was it challenging for you? How did you learn to sort of incorporate yourself into that mix?
Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, Jeremy coaching me on the feeling that he wanted with an odd time mixed in with the standard, Afrobeat, just straight linear groove. It was mostly Jeremy. It was his brain, him being like, hey, try, and he would sit down and show me, and it would take me like maybe 20 minutes, and then boom, it just clicked. Yeah,
that's really fascinating. I mean, and I was looking at that can you talk a little bit about like the kind of momentum? Did you guys wind up doing some domestic touring with that band?
No, we didn't. We just stuck around Santa Barbara, but we played quite a bit in SB. It's like I felt like we had like a gig a week or something wherever it was. But most of the guys were in university, so that band was just, it was all for just fun. I mean, it was Jeremy. I really think you should talk to this
Yeah,
guy.
man, you can hook me up with this. I mean,
He is fascinating, and he's another one of the egoless.
Yeah,
crew.
I need those cats. They're going to save humanity at this point, you know.
We were playing gigs, and he would be like, "Okay, we'd make our money," and he'd be like, "All right, I'm donating this to Rwanda," you know.
Those people, and it's like, how are you going to survive, man? He just giving it away, you know.
Yeah, he was always involved in some charity. Like he was really heavily, like he had gone down to Africa and done some drumming stuff there.
So he went to the motherland. I mean, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and his keyboard skills. I mean, he's just all around just the most well-rounded, aware musician I've ever met. I mean, along with everyone in our crew, it's just crazy. Like he can pick up anything and make it feel good.
Yeah, see, that is just it's like almost like a shaman kind of quality to it.
It is like his music, his lyrics, whatever he's doing, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. in my opinion.
No, I did. Listen, Dusty Ineman. I mean, can you talk a little bit about just bringing it up to speed to today? Like, what is something that is an area, and it could be. It doesn't have to necessarily be a musical thing, but within being a musician and trying to sing for your supper, what is an area coming out of, if we're out of the pandemic, I don't even know if that's the right word, but just, in this new normal, for you, what is a place that you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to grow?
As a musician or as a human?
I think it goes hand in hand, because I'm just saying, like in general, like how much has your the routine and the music, based on how many gigs you were playing before the pandemic and versus now, has that been an adjustment? Are there less gigs? Are you finding your footing? Do you feel like you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to market yourself? My point is that, like, the music flows through you. And for a lot of cats, I used to think that musicians played to reach a state of bliss, and I'm sure within concerts that's partially true, but most cats play to effing live and to play live. And so I just wonder where you're at in terms of coming out of this pandemic, because now that they've sort of, opened the doors to a degree, there's just like every band in the world is taking up, there's just not a lot of venues. So, like, I'm just curious about where you're at and how you're dealing with the new normal and what adjustments, if any, you're going to make.
Well, so at the lockdown, I pivoted to video production.
Wow.
So I had always I got held back my junior year of high school because I would be up till 3 a.m. editing videos I was making.
Dude, the Santa Barbara parents were just so mellow. They let kids drop out. You were up till 3. So you were obsessed and just slept through and couldn't make it to class.
I got put in this private school, and they were like, I got really good at sleeping with my hand on my face. And, but I want to mention this. The private school that I went to, they saw in me that they were like, the headmaster was like, listen, I know academics is not for you. I see where you're going. They gave me my own room on campus that I could.
What kind of freak of nature are you, dude? This is unbelievable.
They gave me my own room. It was like an old storage room. It was like they called it the Stone House. It was really well insulated, and it was soundproof for some reason. It was an old storage room, like in the middle of campus. And they're like, you can set your drums up in there and play drums on your free period, so you get all your craziness out of you when you go back to class, And that but that's a sidetrack. But
Well,
yeah,
no, I
like,
love that, man. I think
the
that's
school was
really
really
so. I thought they were going to say you could play drums all day. I was like, wow, that's pretty
well.
amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were really supportive, and I could go in there any hour of the day and play. I could, I didn't live too far from school, so it was like 3 miles, so it wasn't a big deal to like just hop in the car or
But
get a ride.
the video. So you were up. What kind of video work were you doing up till 3 a.m. before you went to
Oh,
yeah.
just like fun skits with my friends, like, um, or learning how to like do a cool effect or something. I was just fascinated with like the editing software and what you could make video do, and it was so fascinating. It was like, oh, like I've unlocked this magical power.
Right, and it had nothing to do with like learning trigonometry or AP physics. It was like
Yeah.
this was about like you were somebody who could actually learn these systems just intrinsically on your own.
Yeah.
And that see like that's just like a beauty, and that doesn't fit into the traditional world of education. So I mean, were you aware? Did you get? I love that you were. Not were you phased at all based on the fact that society says, Dusty, you gotta get good grades, you gotta move forward in school, and here you are like with that already sort of that self-confidence of knowing that you could self-teach yourself not just music but things on video production and this kind of stuff. How did you stay mentally strong? To me, a lot of cats would, based on family pressure, things like that, they may move away from their true nature. But I guess maybe you were encouraged to move towards your true nature at all times.
I had a lot of support with just family and people going like, it was just obvious. People said they're like, yeah, like you have this special thing about you that's what you're gonna do. Like no doubt. My mom saw it. My mom was freaked out at first when I was failing and like they were like, okay, we're gonna hold him back, but
right, that's a traumatic for a parent,
I had and after making me switch schools because the public school was 2-hour block periods where it was just a nightmare for children to concentrate.
Oh my God.
And she finally just gave up and was like, follow your highest excitement. You're going to do what you want to do. We'll always be here to support you. I mean, it was just like really lucky to have such support.
Well, then look at this. We get to this extended pause and you go directly into video production. Take it away. So what did you, is that became some sort of livelihood of sorts during the pandemic?
Yeah. I mean, it was more so like I was during the pandemic, like during like the whole, like, I don't know, 2020, the lockdown where everyone's kind of like, oh shit, what's going on? That was more like just re-getting my chops back on the editing and getting familiar with, I hadn't done it. I'd been touring for 10 years prior to that,
Wow.
So I was like full on, like I hadn't touched a video camera. I hadn't been keeping up with the technology, So I was like, okay, I got to reacclimate myself to what's going on in this world. So I spent the time doing that, and then I used stimulus checks to buy some new gear, and then I just like, had some friends with wineries and was like, hey, can I do some video content for cheap to get my reel up and all this? And I just kind of just kept working at it. And the main goal is to, do it in the music space, like live music, like live.
Absolutely.
Music.
So you actually were like doing the grape growing process with these wineries? Like what was the video like?
Oh, it was me just documenting. It was a full documentary on the harvest. So
oh my gosh.
Just hanging out. I grew up in Santa Ynez Valley, which is 30 miles east of Santa Barbara. Mm-hmm. So it's like in the grape growing region. So we're surrounded by vineyards. And all my friends from everyone I know here is a winemaker or a grape grower, or works in the industry. So it was really easy for me to go, hey, can I just in documenting that I can show my skills with the audio and cinematography, color.
That's brilliant.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and then I'm just getting more and more clients as a videographer, and also music too. I mean, I kind of have my toes in both things now. I mean, music is definitely on the back burner.
Well, I mean, you're making some, you're able to pay, sing for your
Yeah.
supper. But I mean, like, to me, like, it's not a big deal because, if a door opened and there was an opportunity to play in the right setting, you could just sort of just waltz back into that. I mean, that's really a pretty,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, you seem to retain information very well. I mean,
Yeah.
meaning you don't necessarily, may not pick something up you may not even deal with it for 10 years, but then it takes you a little bit of learning, but you're not daunted by putting it on yourself and figuring it out.
Yeah. Also, speaking to the music career thing, it's like when I moved away from LA in 2019. It was crazy. So I got off. I was in LA, like doing music, playing like I was always playing percussion.
Wow.
It was playing all around with Mapache, Grateful Shred, the Growlers, Gardens and Via, Omar, just
All the cats, man.
hired gun stuff all around town. But as soon as I left, and I got off, I stopped drinking alcohol. I left Los Angeles and got off Instagram.
Right. That's
those-
very good. That's a fantastic recipe right there.
So those three things are great for health, but kind of take you out of visibility within the scene.
That is well, yeah. That is so. Let's break that down. I mean that because I noticed on Instagram, I was like, it was just funny because I'm like, oh my god, dude, that's my man that was playing congas that night with Shred, and there wasn't. I mean, it's good. You weren't, but you haven't been posting a lot of content on Instagram. So
No.
continue on. I mean, so the idea of drinking alcohol, sort of part of the nightlife and music. Leaving LA, which is a musical hub, and then getting off Instagram. So that's healthy for your health. What was the other side of it?
It's just you're invisible.
I love you, man. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. When you're on Instagram, posting about who you're playing with, where you are,
Sure.
keeping up on that, and then when you're out, I mean, in LA, you kind of got to be out, like at the shows, at the bars, mingling,
Networking. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I dig.
And with that comes like a heavy drinking and drug use, which caught up to me. But yeah, it just kind of just I was ready for a little break. I was yeah, it was like broke up with the girlfriend, got sober, Instagram. It was like a huge life switch.
This was before COVID.
This was like right before, yeah.
Right before, and so you went back to Santa Barbara.
Well,
Go ahead.
Like 2018. It was like, yeah, it was end of 2018. I moved back to Santa
Yeah. So
Barbara.
that was a full like. That was a full year before COVID really came in March 2020. So yeah, you bounced out of there, and then take it from there. So did you make a concerted effort to actually kind of like leave music in general and go into video, or what did you do when you got back to Santa Barbara?
I was still in a band called Gardens and Via,
Yes.
which is the main money maker was the main money maker for me on tour and stuff. And just with we'd been touring for 10 years, pretty well established band, like we and so we were still doing that. I'm a little fuzzy. I mean, dang, I'm trying to think.
Let's just focus on this part. I think it's really important because people, myself included, how did you deal with the invisibility to a degree? I mean, some people say, "Oh man, that's all." To a degree, yeah, there is a lot of like hocus pocus and things like that. But when you remove yourself from the public view, for some people, it can be. How did you deal with that invisibility?
I was so ready and so happy with it. I mean,
I love it.
It was like, yeah, it was just this, like, when the drinking stopped, the anxiety stopped, and then worrying about stuff. I don't know. It was just this perfect storm of happiness after the drinking stopped, and I was just content. I didn't need to chase anything. Like,
Right.
I didn't need to have people gratify. Like, you know, I didn't need to play out to feed this thing in me to be, hey, you know, I felt I liked just kind of dropping off for a second.
I totally dig, man.
And I still am, you know, still
you're still off Instagram. You're still, I mean, yeah.
I got on it again for my video business, and then I'm like, and I just kind of slowly.
Well, I'm going to be blowing you up on it, so it doesn't. I mean, you know, it's like
slider videos and.
No, I did. No, so you end a relationship, but in terms of the other thing that would be interesting is just like, you know, the anxiety. I would have anxiety just sort of walking away from what would be your lifeblood, which was music, or not that you walked away from it, but that, you know, because so much of live music and being seen, that all entails the partying component of it, and you walked away from that. So
it was necessary for me to get sober.
Absolutely.
I don't think I could have kept going. Like, it was just too much of a, you know, you walk into the dressing room, there's a 30 rack and a bottle of tequila there. It's just like,
yeah, well, I mean, and you're talking about so talk a little bit about, part of it also goes, I mean, I remember Peter Rowan, the great singer and player, he said the road could eat you alive. I mean, would you say that was also another, it wasn't just like local gigs, it was like,
no, it was like, 3-week van tours across the country, you know.
That is, can you talk about that? I mean, to me, like, that's because in today's world, Dusty, as you are aware, I mean, that's kind of the only way cats are even going to make any kind of money at all, is by getting in a Sprinter van and doing 30 shows in 34 days. And it's pretty... Was that the way it was before COVID, or was it like more like 30 shows in 45 days or something? I mean, to me, it seems like it's just getting... It's just...
It was that way before COVID.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I remember, I think it was 30 shows in 34 days or something. Like, it's like, you just have like a Monday or Tuesday off, and you're playing the rest of the week on tour, and then you're just hitting every market on your routing until you get to the East Coast, at least for us, and then loop back, you know?
So there was, the idea was that, did you still tour with Gardens and Via when you moved back to Santa Barbara for that year? Before COVID?
We were still together, but we had all taken a touring break.
Wow.
We had all been like, okay, we're going to take a little break. I mean, we had done it since 2011, and just constantly. So we were all ready for a break. People were having trouble sleeping, and it was getting kind of tiresome.
Well, actually, it was, you guys probably cut it off at the right time, or you might have maybe lost some cats. You know, it's actually a really good thing.
We all, like, everyone pivoted and is doing things they love, you know, fruit tree restoration businesses and carpentry, and everyone's really happy. And we're actually, I think we're done with the road, the long road, you know. I mean,
the circuit.
The circuit, but you know, we're gonna try and make an album a year and just do it for ourselves, because we love making music together. And if we can get in the studio for 3 weeks, hang out, and make a good record, that's all that we care about.
I got another voice to play for you. You're not going to know it, but just pay attention to the content. We'll come back.
Okay.
To the very times that Bill would spoke to that those are the times when actually you really grow, when you really kind of are you're challenged because you've playing a repertoire that over and over again, or the traveling is tough, or whatever. It's very very trying, very stressful, and that's when you have to really tighten your belt, and get a hold of yourself, and that's when the growth process often is at its best, when you're really under some pressure, duress.
Dusty, that was a interview I did with Eddie Gomez, who was a bass player, amazing bass player, still around, and was Bill Evans' bass player, and he said that, in the heart, it's just funny, we just were talking about the Road Dogg and how insane that can get, and even on these jazz tours that he would go on with Bill, I mean, the life on the road is hard. I was wondering if you could point to a time in your touring career when, I mean, maybe you were physically, seriously super ill or sick, or, like everybody was like exhausted, or the vibe, you were at some sports bar somewhere and people could care less that you were there, but yet through it all, you played like I mean, I've just talked to cats who were like physically sick to the point where they should have been in the hospital, and they were on the bandstand, talking about like major cats in New York, and they got off the bandstand and the crowd was like, dude, I've never heard you play like that. Like, it was beyond, they were completely out of body. Is there an experience that you can point to when you, because I really feel like there's something about, well, I know it's to be true, and it's just, the thing about being a musician is that there's a lot of magic involved. As you talk to some of the great drummers, and Billy Hart, for instance, he'll say that the students want me to describe how I played a certain thing in this certain tune, and I can't describe it because I don't know what I played. So they wind up doing philosophy. And I just want you can riff on that any way you want. I mean, whether it was fatigue, sickness, but
anxiety.
Yeah, exactly? But just the idea that you transcended, you left your physical body and played like absolutely to the stratosphere.
I mean, I've been so anxious. Like, I used to, with alcoholism came anxiety, was just part of the deal. So, like, I was constantly anxious, and there would be there'd be a big show or something, and like my hands would literally be shaking, and then I would like come to, they would be over, and I'd be like, and someone would come and be like, that was amazing. I'd be like, what? I'd be like, I need to go sit down and have a drink, like, or a cigarette, like, holy mackerel. Nothing like an illness, but it was a lot anxiety and fear, stuff like that would just overtake me. And then I would sit on the throne or behind the congas or keyboard or something, and then it was over.
So let me just talk, because I mean, I certainly have anxiety as well. Can you talk about, man, I mean, how would you, I mean, you almost talk about it like blacking out, or I mean, where it's like it's over, like where you're clearly riddled with anxiety and then the show is over. But did you learn to sort of figure out how to not just, basically the point is getting out of the, not just your mental state, but your heart space, and then dropping into your soul? I mean, did you just find yourself listening to the rest of the group? How did you get out of your own way to at least get through the gig, and then obviously play your ass off because people were like, that was insane?
It just once I started playing, it would slowly fade away, but it was still there. I really can't explain it. It was a really trippy feeling. It was like always, it's like in the gut, Anxiety mostly like lives in your gut, So it was like, it was this weird, I know, man, I can't explain it. I can't put it to words. It was just like, it was so heavy. It would start off really heavy. I would literally be on side stage going like, I don't think I can do this. In my head going, like I'm gonna, the fear of passing out. It's like I would get overtaken by fear.
I give you mad credit for. I mean,
I don't know. Yeah,
I really do. I mean, because that sounds like a recipe for disaster on the bandstand. But to compose yourself, I mean, it's like the way I felt going up to when I was playing baseball. You know, like it was like like there was so much. It just felt like a huge gravitational weight on me. You know, and somehow I'd wind up hitting a line drive somewhere and getting on base. But
I had that same experience. I played baseball for 18 years.
Wow.
From from T-ball to senior in high school. But it's kind of a similar feeling. The baseball, like getting up there to bat, you're just like tripping out, and then you like rip one. You know.
Right, and you're
like, whoa.
It's really sort of about like focusing, but like completely focusing on what you're trying to do as opposed to what's going on in your head, which is, you're
right. Yeah. Now that you mention it, it would just be kind of like focusing on your hands, or even like just like looking at someone in the crowd that's having the most amazing time. That always can bring you back really fast.
Oh, that's great to hear, man. Like when you played with Shred and Slow, I mean, like it was so much fun. Like, that for me was a very pivotal moment in my recent life, and it was just like I felt like a lot of those guys, if there's a way to talk about that enclave of Beatty and Omar and Horn and Pache, how would you describe that, brethren? Because to me it goes so much deeper than just being nice people or friendly or surfers or great musicians. There's some other aesthetic there, some sort of divine thing for me that's what I go towards. It's like people that are trying to stay on the righteous path through music. But I kind of wanted you to talk. Ultimately, there's a dark underbelly to the scene as well that you had to walk away from. Just living in that racket, in that music scene. But if you talk about those, ultimately you could have anxiety on the stage but if you looked over at Clay Finch, you'd probably calm down, I don't know.
I'm sure. Yeah. You just look at him and Sam playing. Yeah, definitely. Everyone in that crew's energy is just,
yeah. So that's exactly, their energy is so
wildly,
solid. Yeah.
It's just like solid and grounded, and no one lets the small shit. In my experience, no one really lets the small stuff bother them. I don't know.
Cut that crap. It's right. And they only want good vibes. I don't think they want anybody who's going to bring the vibe down.
They're not going to surround themselves with a crazy person. Someone that's bringing wild energy. Not crazy, but someone.
I did. Someone who's going to hang on to the small shit. Someone who's just going to be a buzzkill. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. There's just something so beautifully. Do you Dusty? Do you have any gigs on the books this summer? Outside of the video work, music gigs.
Do I? I have a friend's wedding. I'm playing some congas in the band, but
I was just kind of hoping you and Beatty and Omar might get a trio thing going in Santa Barbara. So I know.
Oh, well, that's very possible because Omar's moving up here with his newborn. So,
oh my!
And I hang Austin.
Wait, Austin lives in Santa Ynez, doesn't he?
We live 5 miles apart.
That is sick. Wait, you got? Wait, oh man, dude.
We always talk about it. Austin's so busy with his girls, and Omar's busy with his kids too. But I'm working on a space up here. We're gonna call it's an old racquetball court. We want to convert into a kind of a rehearsal space / studio.
Oh my god, dude, that sounds ridiculous. Dude.
Call it the racket room, and because we don't really have a space up here that we can, we have space, but nothing's like set up and everyone's busy. But yes, we want to get together up here and do something. We've been talking about it for a while. And
no, is it enclosed or is it like indoor or is there like?
It's an old racquetball court that we're gonna convert. We're gonna put another story. Like it's a racquetball court's massive.
Yeah, no, I was just saying have Omar,
stories,
bring the kids in the strollers, and Austin's kids they can walk. Get the kids down there, and you guys can put that thing together, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get this Valley. I mean, the Valley music. I call this the Valley, San Ynez Valley. Some people are like, "Oh, San Fernando."
Yeah.
We call it San Ynez Valley, SYV. Yeah, there's amazing musicians that live here.
Wow. I mean, dude, I really think that it's probably one of the most unknown, untapped reservoir music. I mean, it's really off the grid, you know?
Yeah, and it's so close to Los Angeles too. I mean, we grew up. I mean, Robert Cray was my neighbor growing up, and like David Crosby's mom lived a couple houses down.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. Does it get really hot there or no?
It does, yeah.
I figured. I'm like, otherwise it would be like it'd be overrun by people if it was. Like,
well, it's starting to, but it's still a little gem. I mean, after COVID, all these LA people started buying homes up here, but I mean, it's like everywhere. But it was kind of the old cat musician enclave in the '90s. Everyone started buying ranches up here.
Oh,
like
man,
all these like Michael McDonald had a place, like this weird town I live in called Ballard, California. It's just, I don't know.
Well, no, it's you just said it. There's grapes everywhere. It's a good vibe, and then it's really close to LA. So I mean, there's just like I got to figure out how to get. I got to get up there. I mean, the other thing I'm just going to put this. I mean, not that I know that you're a very polite person, but I really need to see you on stage. In Ojai for the 2-night shred run in July. Seems to make sense.
Yeah, I'll talk to McCutch and Horn about that.
Yeah, we'll talk to Kutch and talk to
Actually,
Kutch.
I just picked up some '60s Gone Bops congas from Craigslist here in town yesterday, so I'm like really stoked to start playing those out. So
I just want you to know, rhythm is healing. You know this. You obviously want to, bring in some dough and support yourself, and that the video work is fantastic. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know if you know that word descarga, but it's like literally the splitting open of the having a spiritual discharge from playing hand drums, from the going back to Mongo and the sort of the drumming of the sacred drumming of those islands. I mean, it is so palpable and important, it's So I mean, Dusty, I just had a ball, man. I can't wait to come up to San Ynez and hang with you guys.
Hit me up. I can show you around the valley.
No, we're gonna do it, and then but yeah, also send me some of those. Send me a clip or two from the cellar, with Omar's band, those free jams. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I'll talk to Omar. I'll ask. They're around.
Send me. I just want to hear it. It sounds fun. I'm just, as a journalist, I just love chronicling this stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
What an honor, man. We'll be hanging soon, buddy.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
All right, dude. Later.
Yeah.
Peace. Well, heavy day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Larry Raspberry from the Gentrys in hour one, and then Dusty Ineman, prolific percussionist and keyboard player, kind of all-around savant. That's it for the Jake Feinberg Show. Not sure what's in store next, but we'll keep you posted. Peace.